The US Navy just authorized the most dangerous mission of the decade. They're calling it Project Freedom, but for the crews of the 48 vessels currently trapped in the Persian Gulf, it feels a lot more like a game of Russian roulette. As of May 2026, the Strait of Hormuz isn't just a shipping lane anymore, it's a minefield. Iran didn't just close the door, they locked it, barred it, and pointed a cruise missile at anyone who knocks. But today, the USS New Orleans just received the order every sailor fears: proceed at full speed. We're going inside the blockade to see the machinery that's actually doing the fighting. Let's talk numbers 48. That's how many ships the Navy has had to physically guide in just the last 20 days. We aren't talking about little fishing boats. We're talking about massive crude oil tankers, like the Naval, which, spoiler alert, ended up on fire 2 days ago, after an Iranian greeting off the coast of the UAE. Now you might think, why don't they just leave? Well, it turns out it's hard to sail when the Fifth Fleet confirms the water is literally filled with Iranian mines. It's like trying to leave a parking lot, but the floor is lava and the security guard has a drone fleet. And speaking of drones, the US isn't just sending thoughts and prayers. They're sending the LOCUST. This brings us to the P-8A Poseidon. If this plane was on Tinder, its bio would just say, "I see everything and I have no chill." These things are currently acting as the sky snipers of Project Freedom. They are flying so low over Iranian ports like Chabahar that they can probably see what the Iranian sailors are having for lunch. Seriously, the Navy spent billions on these jets, just so they could tell a cargo ship captain, "Hey, turn left or you're going to meet an Iranian fast boat." It's the world's most expensive GPS, but instead of recalculating, it just calls in an Apache helicopter to sink the obstacle. Speaking of sinking things, let's look at what happened on May 4th. While the ceasefire talks were falling apart in Islamabad, the USS Michael Murphy was busy. On May 4th, 7 Iranian fast boats decided to play chicken with a US patrol. Bad move. The US responded with MH-60 helicopters and, for the tech nerds, the LOCUST laser system. The LOCUST is basically a giant delete button for drones. It costs about $5 a shot. To put that in perspective, that's cheaper than a Big Mac. The Navy is literally spending less money to take out a kamikaze drone than you spent on your last lunch. That is the definition of efficiency. But here is the scary part. As of this morning, the operation is on a temporary pause. Why? Because the warning was issued. If the 48 vessels aren't cleared out, and the mines aren't swept, the next phase of Project Freedom isn't just guidance, it's a full-scale entry into Iranian waters. The US Navy just did this to show they could. Now, the world is waiting to see if Iran believes them. Look, tracking the US Navy's 2026 budget is a headache. Luckily, I'm the one on the anvil. If you want this intel without the medical bills, hit subscribe. It's faster than an F-35 and unlike my ex, it actually delivers on its promises. Now, if you thought the P-8A was high-tech, wait until you see what's coming in the FY27 budget. The Navy is officially requesting billions for the Golden Fleet, starting with the USS Defiant, a 40,000-ton Trump-class battleship designed specifically to carry high-powered lasers and electromagnetic rail guns. Basically, it's a floating fortress that makes a Star Destroyer look like a rowboat. The Navy wants 25 of these bomb magnets because, apparently, being a 900-foot target in a minefield is the new cool. But while those battleships are still on the drawing board, the real war is happening underwater. Since April, the US has already sunk 16 Iranian mine layers. But Iran is persistent. They've turned the strait into a giant game of minesweeper, but with real oil tankers and $2 million tolls. To counter this, the US is deploying multi-domain unmanned platforms, underwater drones that act as the first line of defense against these asymmetric threats. Don't believe the pause in the news. Just yesterday, UAE air defenses were actively engaging Iranian missiles and drones for the second day in a row. And while President Trump announced a temporary pause in Project Freedom to finalize a deal, the naval blockade of all Iranian ports remains in full force and effect. The Navy just proved they can escort ships like the Naval through a war zone. Now, they're waiting to see if Iran wants to sign the peace treaty. or try their luck against the USS Michael Murphy's $5 laser shots again. We've seen the drones, we've seen the lasers, and we've seen the 48 ship return to sender mission. But now we have to talk about the big stick. As of this morning, the USS Gerald R. Ford has moved into a strike-ready position, just outside the Gulf. The US isn't just playing defense anymore. The latest warning issued to Tehran was clear: any further mining of international waters will be met with a disproportionate response. In military speak, that's the polite way of saying the Navy is tired of playing tag, and is ready to start knocking down doors. It's like when your mom tells, "You don't make me come up there." You know she doesn't want to, but if she does, your Xbox, or in this case, your entire coastal defense system, is getting unplugged for good. The nuclear option here isn't just about warheads, it's about total electronic dominance. The Navy is reportedly preparing to deploy the EA-18G Growlers, next-gen jamming pods. This would effectively turn off the lights in every Iranian port from Bandar Abbas to Bushehr. Imagine trying to fire a missile when your radar looks like an old TV with no signal. That is the level of no-fly, no-sail the US is ready to enforce if the 48-hour clock runs out. So, where does this leave us? Project Freedom is a gamble. On one hand, you have 1,500 commercial ships that need a way out. On the other, you have a cornered regime with a massive stockpile of mines and drones. The US Navy just showed the world that they are willing to put their $13 billion carriers and their $5 laser shots on the line to keep the global economy from flatlining. But the real question isn't what the Navy can do. We know they can flatten a coastline. The question is the world ready for what happens if the diplomacy fails? If you found this breakdown of the 2026 naval crisis helpful, make sure to hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that real military analysis matters more than clickbait. Subscribe to SkySea Defense to stay updated on Project Freedom, because as we've seen in the last 48 hours, things can change with a single missile launch.